called it termination or abortion. They didn't call it, that's what they call preterm births is abortion. So when you hear about in the media about abortion laws changing and things like that, it's for people like me who are already going through the process and need to have that option so they don't have to put their life at risk. So we were left with a really impossible choice. What do we do? And we couldn't believe it. My husband and I, we were like, there's got to be a third option, and there was none. When we were transferred to UCLA Hospital, where we were under the most well-known and respected care, and ended up giving birth to my son, and held him on my chest, felt his heartbeat, looked at his tiny hands that were my husband's hands, and his chin that was my husband's chin, and said goodbye to him. And that was tremendously hard. I don't think I'll ever know anything harder than to say goodbye to a child like that. Thank you.
This takes a lot of courage on your part to share.
Thank you.
And putting a face on something, this is not a political show,
No.
but putting a face on something that is being politicized,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and not understanding, I'm not the one who promote abortion.
Yes.
And I know you are not.
I'm not either, yeah.
But it is that option that you be able to make that decision.
Yes.
God forbid you have to deal with
make
a situation
decision
like
yes.
that. Because what would happen, you would end up with this, you don't even know what it would be.
The additional factors and trauma and cost, like not financial cost, that wasn't a factor. It was the cost of life. What is the quality of life for anybody that is born into the world that is going to be hooked up to ventilators for 12 weeks, 20 weeks, and machines and I mean, babies are born and they go through NICUs and, things like that all the time, but is that something I'm going to actively choose for my child? I don't know. There's some gravity to that decision, and that's the decision that we made for our family, and I've met other women too that have had to make similar decisions. But it's an impossible one, and making an impossible decision means that you have to live with the consequences, not necessarily bad, but just what happens on the other side of that decision. So.
And understanding that in your situation, it was nothing you did that caused that happening.
Nothing. Yeah. I have what's called an incompetent cervix. So for my 2 subsequent pregnancies, I had to have what's called a cerclage inserted. It's a stitch that they literally put in your cervix. It's like an insurance policy to make sure that we never had to go through that again. But there's not a lot of research. There's not a lot of data. There's not a lot of knowledge of what actually causes incompetent cervix. It could be environmental. It could be just body. There's so many different factors, but nobody really knows. And there's no way to know.
Until you actually experience
it too. So it was, yeah.
So this was how many years ago?
It was 7 years ago. He was born on March 6, 2012. And it's funny because I have the date memorized now, and it's easier to remember because it's 3/6/12. But for the first 5 years after he was born, my brain would not hold and would not retain that information. And in fact, I was just talking about this story with my best friend the other day, and she was asking me the name of the doctor that we saw at UCLA, and I was like, it's literally not in my brain. I can't remember his name at all. I remember what he looks like, but I don't remember his name.
It's not an experience that you want to keep remembering and
No, but
reliving.
during trauma, your brain only holds on to the emotion of things. It doesn't hold on to facts. It's impossible because it's such an experience. So.
Exactly.
But post that, I mean, the support that I received was tremendous from the doula who was there with me. She's gone on to build her midwifery practice. And then one of my close friends was also there with us during the process, and her action and her ability to be a voice of reason for us and calm and supportive through that experience actually inspired her career as a doula and childbirth educator too. So that has been tremendous. I've really appreciated it, impactful as well. So, but the healing that I've had to do has been a process. Obviously, it's taken me 7 years to get to this point where I can tell the story. I'm still, obviously, it's very sad for me, but I'm not at the point where I'm sobbing and uncontrollable and can't reason my way through anything anymore. Grief comes in waves, and that feeling of loss can be triggered by certain things, but having shared my story now several times in different arenas within like healing groups or support groups or just with families, people that I've met since or post my son's life, those factors, that telling of that story has helped women have some tremendous healing themselves. I've met so many women that have come to me and we've discovered that we had this thing in common. Either they've had a miscarriage or whatever, but them knowing and hearing me tell my story, which I tend to do on his birthday every year, it has enabled them to have some power and healing through that process too. So through hearing my story and knowing that they're not alone, because I think the statistic is 1 in 4 women has either had a miscarriage, preterm birth, or stillbirth, and that's a huge statistic. That's 25% of the population has been affected, but the culture has always been to not discuss these sort of things. In fact, my best friend was just saying that she was 6 weeks pregnant when she found out she was having a miscarriage, but she didn't know. So the emotions tied to that was very confusing for her, and she didn't know, do I share this information? Nobody actually knows I was pregnant because I didn't know I was pregnant. But it still has an effect on your body and your mind. And it's important to kind of claim that, and not in a I'm a warrior, survivor kind of person. That's not what I'm talking about. It's more about, this is a part of me. It's a part of my history, a part of my story, and being able to share that story. When you're ready, of course, yes. But it has tremendous power.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, just thinking about it, I can only imagine. And I shared with you as a sibling, I had that experience with my mom. She lost 3 children, very young.
It's very hard.
One of them was stillborn, and the other 2 were actually, they came to this world, but things happened that she lost them. It's not an easy thing to go through, but when you are ready to share that story, it becomes part of your healing process.
Yes.
And it not necessarily make it easier to deal with the emotions, but it helps you deal with those emotions and get through them.
Yes, it helps. The analyzation that comes from telling a story about what you've gone through actually helps you put puzzle pieces together, helps you reason around it. And I have a friend that recently lost a child to cancer, a daughter, and I have 2 daughters now. So when she lost her daughter, it was extremely